Big Thief just dropped their new album, Double Infinity. And this is a band, an indie folk band that has been on a roll, especially in their recent releases. Like, I remember shooting this band in 2017. It was at a Long Beach music festival called Music Tastes Good. And this is right after they had released their second album, Capacity. And so I knew that they were like on the come up, but there were so many like indie folk acts that were bigger than them at the time. And I didn't foresee Big Thief leapfrogging all of these other indie folk bands and artists in just over the next couple of years. Like, that's basically what happened, because after Capacity, and they had their masterpiece album back in 2016, but in 2019 they released two albums, UFOF and Two Hands, and they released them about like a half a year apart. And UFOF has what is still my favorite Big Thief song, Cattails. That's, I believe, track 2 on UFOF, which was, I believe, nominated for Best Alternative Music Album Grammy that year. And then Two Hands, a half a year later, that same year, 2019, you could argue is an even better album, just beginning to end, than UFOF. Two Hands is pretty stacked. It's got very few, if any, misses, and there were multiple Grammy nominations off of that one. So yeah, Big Thief has been doing big things lately, especially when you consider, like, for instance, in terms of their Spotify monthly listeners, over 6.5 million, which, if you look at other indie folk acts, that's really a lot. It's not like, hip hop or, some of the poppier genres where you get like a lot of people with 20, 30, 40 million listeners a month. So in the indie folk space, Big Thief is pretty much nearly as big as it gets, outside of those who have already kind of exploded onto, more mainstream platforms. Like, there are certain like Americana, or they call it alt country artists, that probably have a bigger following, but not many. Big Thief has arrived, and in 2022 they had one of the most critically acclaimed albums of the year, which I believe was also Grammy nominated in the alternative categories. That was Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. And Big Thief's lead singer and guitarist, Adrian Lenker. Now, everybody on Big Thief has released like different spin-off solo albums, and they did have a member just depart from the band like last year. So this is actually going to be their first album, Double Infinity, first album without their bassist, Max Olierchik. But Adrian Lenker, Buck Meek, they all have their solo albums, but Adrian Lenker, solo and with Big Thief, has kind of emerged as one of the most well-respected indie artists in the genre. Like, her catalog, even outside of Big Thief, is one to be reckoned with, especially with her last couple releases, like in 2020. So this would have been the year right after UFOF and Two Hands from Big Thief. Adrian Lenker dropped an instrumentals, kind of like I would say like an ambient or ambient adjacent album called Instrumentals, and then a more musical, fleshed out with verses and singing, because there is no singing on Instrumentals. Then a completely different album called Songs. So on the same day, it was in October of 2020, she dropped Songs and Instrumentals. And then last year, she dropped, I would say, her most critically acclaimed, well, I don't know, Songs was pretty damn critically acclaimed, but Bright Future was nominated, I believe, in the Best Folk Album category. Bright Future was a very good Adrian Lenker album. So Adrian Lenker and Big Thief have just been on a tear lately, and they've got a very interesting style. I've always looked at Adrian Lenker's voice as having this, it's like an ancient spiritual quality to it. There's like a sincerity. It's not the prettiest voice. Like, you have people who, as soon as they open their mouth and sing something, it just sounds like the heavens opened up. Adrian Lenker has this rustic beauty to her voice, but it's not the most graceful. It's a little bit scratchy. It's a little bit worn and tough, but there is this like sincerity and honesty in the voice, and it just works perfectly well. Again, go to that song, Cattails. That was the one. I already liked them from Capacity, but when I heard Cattails, I was all in, and I've been all in since with Big Thief. It just sounds like there is some ancient wisdom and understanding and empathy in Adrian Lenker's voice. And they've been varying it up a little bit. They've got some more stripped down acoustic stuff. They've got more kind of pick me up, more riveting, folky music. So it's all within that indie folk realm, but they are somewhat varied. And you know, I was kind of hoping, because I'm looking at this Double Infinity track list. I haven't heard the whole album yet. I've heard the, you know, the early teaser singles like Los Angeles, Incomprehensible, All Night, All Day, and Grandmother. Those were like the 4 that they released before this album drop. But I was kind of hoping that they included Vampire Empire, which they first released it as Big Thief, and it kind of had this 90s alternative rock quality to it. It was one of my favorite songs of, I think it was like 2023. Then Adrienne Lenker included that Vampire Empire song on her Bright Future album in 2024, but it was a stripped down acoustic version. I wouldn't mind them circling back and just placing Vampire Empire, that alternative rock version, the more fully produced version of that song, on an album, but it doesn't appear like it's going on Double Infinity, which maybe it just doesn't fit. So it's kind of a standalone song, at least in that alternative rock form. But that was one of the outliers to me in Big Thief's catalog. That one was kind of outside of the bounds of the indie folk realm that they've been operating in. But yeah, I can't wait to give this Double Infinity a listen. The teaser songs that I have heard from the album are really good. And again, their album by album quality has kind of earned them this esteem, this reputation. They're one of the more respected indie artists in the game right now. And it's largely because of their consistency from Capacity on. I mean, critically acclaimed Capacity, UFOF, Two Hands, both of them critically acclaimed. Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You, critically acclaimed. Now let's see how the critics treat Double Infinity. I know that Big Thief, they've been gradually performing to bigger audiences. Like this go around in Southern California, they're going to be headlining at the Hollywood Bowl, which is pretty appropriate for them. And I haven't gotten a ticket yet. I haven't checked to see if any tickets are still available. Again, the only time I've seen them is when I shot them at Music Tastes Good, but that was, again, back in 2017. I've been meaning to see them since, but yeah, let me know if you're already up on Big Thief. They're one of my favorite indie folky artists going right now. I think that they're one of the best indie folk artists of the past 10 years. And they've just been on a roll again lately with their consistent album quality, which it's rare that you find an artist that doesn't have any drop offs. Usually, you know, some people will like, you know, this album and this album, but not this one so much. Or critics often get kind of, they sort of turn on artists often. That hasn't yet happened with Big Thief. So we'll see if they get the 8.0 or greater in Pitchfork, or, you know, what their Metacritic or Rate Your Music aggregate score is. But yeah, stay tuned. Again, I can't wait to hear this new Double Infinity album. If you've already heard it, let me know your thoughts on it, and let me know what your favorite Big Thief album is. Mine is probably still Two Hands, maybe followed by Dragon, New Warm Mountain, and then UFOF. Although again, UFOF has my favorite Big Thief song, Cattails. But let me know your favorite Big Thief album and maybe your 3 favorite Big Thief songs in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.